These games should have been here a long time ago on Nintendo Switch, but Batman is now finally here on the Switch to serve justice, to put the criminals of Gotham City behind bars, back in Blackgate, back in Arkham Asylum, all over again on Nintendo Switch. I originally wanted this game to come to the system in 2017, and it is finally here in 2023. But saying that though, should Batman have took a night off and stayed in the cave for this one? Let's get into the review. You'll be stepping in the boots of the Dark Knight that truly makes you feel like you are the Batman. You'll be stopping crimes in progress, collecting and solving Riddler puzzles, Joker teeth to destroy, collectibles to find and challenges to do, interrogating criminals, following trails, rescuing hostages, using stealth and sneaking up on unsuspecting bad guys in the area, and fighting off against Gotham's most notorious villains in the Asylum and in Gotham City as you hide in the shadows and plan your move carefully. With enemies around you, you'll be taking out enemies one by one using your gadgets at your disposal, or you'll just be using your fists with Wayne Tech upgrades as well to level up your arsenal of gadgets, attacks and armour. Playing this port on Switch, it just seems like not enough care and attention has went in to porting this to Switch. One game in particular I am not going to hate on this trilogy on Switch. It's nostalgic, like it was back in the day playing it for the very first time on the Xbox 360, because it's enjoyable, it's playable, it's a lot of fun. But for this trilogy, you may want to leave your bat card in the cave. And the Batman Arkham games, still to this day, I think are some of the greatest, if not the greatest, superhero games I have ever played. It's Batman, it's dark, it's gritty, it's Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill reprising their iconic roles as the Batman and Joker, with absolutely phenomenal voice acting and one of the greatest stories to a video game of all time, with so many twists and turns and surprises along the way. With all three of these games, they are all amazing, with some of the greatest games I have ever played, with one of the greatest moments in any video game that I have ever experienced from Arkham Asylum. If you know, you know. As you fight your way through thugs, inmates and iconic Batman villains, with Arkham Asylum being a more linear Batman outing as you explore the depths and darkness of the asylum and put a stop to the madness within it. Arkham City opened up the city and made it explorable, made it a sandbox, free-roaming Batman game. Batman is no longer locked in the asylum and its grounds, but now you have a huge city to roam around in, and plays both Batman and Catwoman, the Bat and the Cat. And then there's Arkham Knight that changes things up again. It puts you in the driving seat of the Batmobile, and with a heavy focus on vehicle combat and driving mechanics, which was teased in Arkham Asylum. It just made you want to drive it in that game when we first seen it on the grounds, but we couldn't. And in Arkham Knight, we can. Arkham Asylum plays honestly pretty perfect on Switch, with minor frame rate dips every now and again, very minor frame rate dips. And Arkham City also, surprise surprise, being a huge open world city to freely explore and just do whatever you want at your own leisure, doing loads of missions and puzzles, challenges and collectibles, gliding and grappling around the city. You would think there would be issues there, but Arkham City runs pretty flawlessly. It's smooth, it's fluid. The city looks incredible on Switch and it plays incredible with a consistent frame rate as well. And then there's Arkham Knight, and this is one that we all feared for, like being dosed up with Scarecrow's fear gas, because Arkham Knight runs really bad on Switch. Horrible, in fact. It's just absolutely awful on the system. We all feared this because it's a newer game out of the original two, and it's much more fast-paced with the Batmobile moments and everything, and it runs terrible. It's playable, sure, it is playable on Switch. It's not a great time. It's not a great experience. It needs to be patched up. But Arkham Asylum and Arkham City looks sharp. The textures, the shadows, lighting and overall visuals, they both seem to be optimized really well on the Switch. The visuals, textures, style and the city looks incredible in Arkham City with very, very minor occasional pop-ins. Honestly, if you are going to use your Bat card to purchase this trilogy, it's worth it just for Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. They play insanely well, and the gameplay for those games alone are incredible. Sometimes Asylum can be pretty haunting as well, with horror elements. It absolutely terrified me when I was younger with these moments. There was moments where I thought the game was actually going to break, but it turned out to just be part of the story, part of what was going on. Arkham Asylum is just so incredible in gaming history. It's on my top 5 games of all time, Arkham Asylum. And of course, Arkham City. So many twists and turns and surprises in that one as well, and Easter eggs around the city that you'll discover and find. Both Asylum and City, 100% play them. It's an absolute must play. And then there's Arkham Knight. Don't even bother with this game. Don't even look at it. Don't even touch it. Don't even load up Arkham Knight until this is patched up. And to be fair, Arkham Knight is the worst game out of the 3 anyways, I think. There's just so many pop-ins of things in the world loading in as you glide around and grapple around Gotham, with stuttering and frame rate dips all over the place. It's a lot blurrier with its performance. It isn't great. It struggles with weird textures as well. Things don't load in correctly. When you're in the distance looking at something, it's just an absolute muddy, pixelated mess when you're looking at it in the distance, and then you get close and it'll just suddenly load in front of you. I don't think even Robin would want to steal Batman's spotlight in Arkham Knight. The load times, though, really aren't too bad for all 3 of these games. But with Arkham Knight, though, with that being said, when you pause the game to just bring up the map, a simple thing to do, it even stutters in the menus. It just drops frames when you bring up the map. In Arkham Knight especially, there seems to be a heavy use of upscaling with shadows and effects, with the resolution and draw distance taking an absolutely huge hit with these games, with blurry areas, things not loading in properly, things looking really pixelated, and they just haven't been flushed out at all in the port of Arkham Knight. From a big hit on textures and visuals, with low-res textures when you get up close. And you can tell Arkham Knight is a big struggle on Switch. And then there's the Batmobile segments from Arkham Knight, which is meant to be the main focus of the 3rd game. Holy frame rates, Batman. It's so laggy. All these iconic Batman moments are just ruined with the Switch version because of performance. All of these iconic Batmobile moments, it's meant to be this big moment. Wow, I'm finally controlling the Batmobile. I am finally driving the Batmobile. Wow. And it just completely takes it out of the whole experience with how bad it is, with heavy moments of lag and frame rate issues. The game in moments as well, it's like the game is trying to catch up to you. You're going that fast in the Batmobile. The game will pause itself for a second off you, and then it'll stutter and catch up to you as you're driving around in the Batmobile. As well as when you are gliding around or grappling around the city in Arkham Knight, it will stutter. It will drop frames, and you'll see things in the distance popping in and loading in as you get closer. And it's just Arkham Knight, I think, could have been optimized so much better when we think that we have Hogwarts Legacy on Switch, which is a much more newer game than Arkham Knight, but yet Hogwarts Legacy runs and plays better than Arkham Knight does on the Switch. During these slower paced segments and missions and moments, and even when in tank mode in the Batmobile, I'll admit, it's definitely playable in parts. Keyword there, in parts. It's playable in certain areas of Arkham Knight, and it's just a shame that Arkham Knight lets down this whole trilogy. Because Arkham Asylum and Arkham City play incredibly well. It's smooth, fluid and seamless, just as the iconic legendary combat system was when we first experienced it all those years ago. With these games, the free-flowing combat has always been amazing, has always been a benchmark in how combat is perceived to this day. Free-flowing around a bunch of enemies with light attacks, heavy attacks, perfectly timed counter-attacks with the bat sense, evades, working up an insane combo bouncing from enemy to enemy, using the gadgets at your disposal to then finishing off these enemies with a slow motion finishing blow as you brutally beat up enemies. Some enemies come at you with weapons and knives and baseball bats themselves and also guns, so you need to free flow around the other enemies while also being wary that there's also those enemies that can do some serious damage. And if you master the free-flowing combat of these games, it's like poetry in motion. It is like poetry in motion. Would I recommend these games? Yes, of course I would recommend these games. It's the Batman Arkham Trilogy. Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, yes. They play well on Switch. They play great, in fact. They play incredibly well on the system. I'm so glad that these games are finally on Switch. But where is the love for Arkham Origins? I know it's not by Rocksteady, it's a different voice actor as Batman, it's an origin story, but Arkham Origins was so incredibly good. It was amazing. It was on the Wii U. Why isn't it on the Switch? Another game that was on the Wii U that is here in this trilogy was Batman Arkham City Armored Edition. And that was also incredible on the Wii U. And there it is, Batman for Switch. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate every single one of you for making me a part of your day and checking out my videos. Thank you. Anyways, guys, I'll see you next time.